Blake Lively may have just crossed the line again. And this time, the fallout is far more serious than anything her legal team appears prepared for. What originally looked like a private workplace dispute has now exploded into what insiders are calling Hollywood's biggest extortion scandal in years. And the difference now is that it's no longer just Justin Baldoni's word versus Blake Lively's narrative. There is a recording, an allegedly illegal recording, that Blake Lively's side is accused of secretly obtaining and attempting to use as proof of a conspiracy against her. But in a stunning twist, this very recording may actually end up destroying her entire case. According to newly unsealed court documents, the mystery witness Blake Lively presented as support for her harassment allegations wasn't a victim at all, but Claire Ayoub, an indie filmmaker whose small-budget movie Empire Waste had been quietly withdrawn from release after failing to perform. She is now at the center of the legal storm, accused of illegally recording Wayfarer Studios chairman Steve Sarowitz and secretly giving that audio to Blake Lively's camp. The legal problem? Both Illinois and Connecticut are two-party consent states. That means if Sarowitz didn't knowingly agree to being recorded, the tape is potentially criminally illegal. And here's where the stakes skyrocket. The audio was not obtained through subpoena. It was not disclosed in discovery. At first, it allegedly came directly from Claire Ayoub to Blake. Lively privately, meaning Blake's lawyers are now being accused of knowingly accepting unlawfully obtained evidence. But worse for Blake, insiders say the tape doesn't show harassment or a smear campaign at all. It shows Sarowitz defending his studio and its legal position, not conspiring against her. Yet Blake's team allegedly tried to spin that recording into proof of harassment and retaliation. And this is only the setup, because the next major blow in the filings comes from a sworn deposition by a top Hollywood agent, someone who represented both Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. And he used a word that instantly reframed the entire dispute: extortion. That agent, WME partner Danny Greenberg, admitted under oath that he described Blake's actions as extortion in his own private text messages with Justin Baldoni, long before any lawsuit was filed. He testified that what happened on set wasn't creative disagreement. It was threat-based leverage, the kind designed to force studio compliance until she got control. He also confirmed that Ryan Reynolds personally got involved behind the scenes, allegedly calling him and accusing Baldoni of being a predator. According to the testimony, this wasn't based on evidence. It was an intimidation tactic during negotiations. If true, that means the smear campaign didn't come from Wayfarer. It came from Blake and Ryan's side. And this is all before the testimony from Blake's own makeup artist is even introduced, which contradicts her public harassment narrative entirely. While Blake, Lively publicly painted herself as a mistreated victim on the set of It Ends With Us, the people who were actually there, the people in the room with her every day, tell a very different story. One of the most damaging accounts comes from Vivian Baker, Blake's own personal makeup artist, who worked with her throughout production. In sworn testimony, Baker confirmed there was no harassment, no threat, and no hostile work environment coming from Baldoni or Wayfarer. Instead, she described Blake as tense, controlling, and increasingly combative toward anyone who didn't align with her decisions. According to the court records, Baker said she never once witnessed Justin Baldoni behave inappropriately, and she was physically closer to Blake on set than almost any other crew member. If harassment had happened the way Blake claims, Baker would have been the first to know. But she wasn't, because it didn't. And the testimony doesn't stop there. Multiple crew witnesses confirmed the same pattern: Blake wasn't being mistreated. She was demanding more control. Disputes centered around marketing, editing authority, and image management. Not a single on-set witness supported Blake's harassment storyline. Even more telling, none of these people were defense witnesses recruited by Wayfarer. They were her own people, the ones her legal team expected to back her up. Instead, they backed up Wayfarer's version of events. That's why the illegal recording matters so much. It was one of the only pieces Blake's team had left to push the harassment narrative, and now it's blowing back on her. Because if the witnesses contradict her, and the recording doesn't show harassment, and her own agent called it extortion, then the case stops looking like whistleblowing and starts looking like leverage-turned lawsuit. Next, the filings move into what may be the most devastating part of this entire scandal. Evidence Blake tried to weaponize PR pressure to force a studio into handing her creative control, and is now calling that retaliation because it didn't work. Not a single witness supported Blake's story. Not her agent, not her on-set crew, not even her own makeup artist. Multiple people confirmed the exact same thing. There was no harassment, no screaming, no chaos, just a normal filming schedule in New Jersey. What was real? Blake's obsession with creative control. She wasn't furious about safety. She was furious she didn't get to dictate test screenings and edits she never had contractual authority over. But when she started losing leverage on set, something changed. Fast. That's when Ryan Reynolds stepped in. Court testimony from WME agent Danny Greenberg describes a stunning escalation. Ryan allegedly picked up the phone and accused Justin Baldoni of being a sexual predator, with zero evidence. One phone call, one rumor. Suddenly, studios panicked, and Baldoni, the director of his own project, was quietly sidelined while Blake was handed full kid glove treatment. It wasn't justice. It was influence. And it worked for a while. But then Baldoni started gathering receipts. And now, those same depositions are revealing the dark flip side of the story, not a harassment case, but a power grab wrapped in victimhood. The result? A narrative collapse unfolding in real time. Insider legal filings now suggest that the smear campaign could become the couple's biggest miscalculation, one that may boomerang straight back onto both Blake and Ryan in court. Because when the documents are laid out, one thing becomes impossible to ignore. Everyone around Blake says this was about control, not misconduct. And next, we break down how that shift in narrative could trigger major legal exposure, not for Baldoni, but for Blake and Ryan. Now that the testimony is out, the collapse is no longer hypothetical. It's already happening behind the scenes. Studios are quietly pulling back. Public sympathy is shifting. And lawyers are no longer treating Blake as a victim, but as a potential bad faith accuser. Because once the narrative unravels, motive becomes everything. And the motive painted in these filings is not fear. It's control, revenge, and image management. Industry insiders say the turning point wasn't anything Baldoni did. It was what Blake and Ryan tried to do. Freeze him out of his own production while rewriting history to justify it. That is where this stops being a PR spin and becomes a legal threat. Why? Because if the accusations were knowingly exaggerated or fabricated to kill Baldoni's credibility and seize creative control, that opens the door to something far bigger: defamation, tortious interference, career sabotage, damages, malicious reputational harm. And that's why people in Hollywood are suddenly going quiet. Not because they're protecting Blake, but because they're realizing Baldoni may actually have the winning case. The image of Blake the wronged star, the one that headlines happily ran for months, is being replaced by something much more damning: Blake the aggressor, Ryan the enforcer, Baldoni the target. And that shift is lethal in a courtroom. Because if jurors believe Baldoni was smeared to force him out, this doesn't end with a settlement, it ends with accountability. Coming up next, we break down the moment the legal tide officially turned, the filing that reportedly left Blake's team panicked and scrambling for a new strategy. The real panic didn't start when Baldoni defended himself. It started when he produced evidence. According to legal insiders, the biggest shift came when Baldoni's team submitted a sworn filing that included internal communications, timeline records, and third-party confirmations, all showing the exact opposite of what Blake had been telling studios and the press. That filing reportedly showed no harassment incidents documented at the time, no escalation reports, no safety complaints, no HR filings, no crew testimony supporting her claims, no paper trail, anywhere. But what did exist? Repeated disputes about editing authority, final cut control, and ownership of the project's tone and messaging. And that is devastating for Blake's claim, because harassment victims have inconsistencies, not complete non-existence. Total absence is not inconsistencies, it's fabrication. That's why people close to the litigation describe Blake's legal strategy as crumbling in real time. Because once her claim is exposed as a creative power grab, not a safety issue, her entire justification collapses. Even worse, the filing included a reconstructed timeline showing Blake's harassment allegation only appeared after she lost creative leverage. Meaning, she didn't accuse him because she was unsafe, she accused him because she was losing control. That is the moment the story flipped. Not woman fighting harassment, but celebrity manufacturing a crisis to seize control of a franchise. And legal analysts are already warning, if the jury comes to that same conclusion, This case moves out of PR damage and into liability. In the next segment, we walk through the part of the transcript where Baldoni's lawyers corner Blake's narrative, using her own timeline against her. When Baldoni's legal team walked through the timeline during deposition, Blake's story began to unravel, not because of emotion, but because of dates. They showed that Blake never made a harassment claim during filming. She never filed a report after filming. She never contacted HR when the alleged misconduct occurred. She never involved SAG, a union rep, or studio legal. She only raised harassment after the editing dispute exploded. In other words, the accusation didn't precede the conflict. It followed it. That is catastrophic legally, because harassment complaints tied directly to loss of creative power and made after leverage disappears look less like protection and more like retaliation. The defense then pointed to industry emails where Blake was still praising the production team, posting behind-the-scenes smiles, and advocating for the film. During the same period, she now claims she felt unsafe. No fear. No warnings. No documented mistreatment. Just praise until she didn't get control. And that's the moment the tone in the courtroom shifted. Because once her own past statements contradict her sworn narrative, the case stops being about what happened and starts being about why did she lie about what happened. From there, Baldoni's lawyers made their next move. They tied her new harassment claim to Ryan Reynolds' behind-the-scenes interference and the weaponizing of his influence. That's when the allegation evolved from misconduct into a coordinated campaign. And in the next part, we break down exactly how the defense connected Blake's accusation to Ryan's smear phone call, and why that may now qualify as malicious interference under the law. The mystery recording Blake Lively used as proof isn't evidence anymore. It's a potential crime. Attorneys are now reviewing it as an illegal wiretap, and if investigators confirm it was recorded without consent, the blame doesn't fall on a witness. It falls squarely on the team that used it. And that's where Blake's legal strategy collapses. Because once you knowingly present illegally obtained material, the issue isn't harassment. It's misconduct by the accuser. At the same time, Hollywood insiders have begun labeling her on-set tactics, threatening to skip the premiere, blocking marketing efforts, and demanding creative control she never had contractually, as extortion. Not self-advocacy. If that word sticks legally, this stops being a PR battle and becomes a potential liability. Meanwhile, the man she tried to bury, Justin Baldoni, is being quietly vindicated. Industry insiders are now rallying behind him, praising his professionalism, restraint, and refusal to escalate the smear campaign. What began as Blake's attempt to destroy his reputation has flipped into a reverse public verdict. The image of the golden couple is cracking, fast. And for the first time, the court of public opinion is no longer on Blake and Ryan's side. Because in Hollywood, the truth always leaks, and once it does, no amount of curated PR polish can bury it. The final reality. Hollywood is waking up to Blake Lively, walked into this legal fight believing she could control the narrative. That she could play the victim, recast Justin Baldoni as the villain, and win through sympathy rather than facts. But the depositions told a different story. The recording? Potentially illegal. The behavior? Described by her own agent as extortion. The harassment? Refuted by people actually on set, including her own makeup artist. Now, insiders across Hollywood are quietly distancing themselves. The whispers at premieres, studio executives off the record, and agents behind the scenes are all saying the same thing. Blake overplayed her hand. The woman once branded as grace and empowerment is now being viewed as a power broker who tried to weaponize outrage and got caught. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni didn't retaliate. He didn't smear anyone. He simply brought receipts and let the facts speak. That is why the unofficial verdict is already landing long before the legal one does. Because the truth is now unavoidable. The real villains weren't behind the camera, they were in front of it. But the damage isn't just reputational, it's structural. Hollywood is now quietly reevaluating Blake and Ryan as business partners, not just celebrities. Because in this industry, the worst label you can carry isn't controversial, it's untrustworthy. Studios can handle drama. What they won't tolerate is liability. Behind closed doors, producers and financiers are reportedly asking the same question. If Blake was willing to use a potentially illegal wiretap here, what stops her from doing it again? And the concern isn't just about this film. It's about future projects, negotiations, contracts, and NDAs. Once a studio fears you might record calls, twist statements, or weaponize public outrage, You stop being an asset and start being a legal risk. Meanwhile, Ryan Reynolds is now part of the fallout too. His alleged smear phone calls, accusing Baldoni of being a predator without evidence, have placed him directly inside the extortion narrative. If investigators determine those accusations were used as leverage, Ryan isn't just a bystander, he's a participant. Insiders are calling it the couple's biggest miscalculation. They assumed people would be afraid to challenge them. Instead, the case exposed something Hollywood rarely says out loud. Power without accountability eventually exposes itself. Industry analysts are already warning that this scandal could permanently change how studios view celebrity-led productions. Not because of one dispute, but because it revealed the playbook. When Blake couldn't win through creative authority, she allegedly tried to win through pressure tactics, public narrative manipulation, and illegal evidence. And that's the part executives care about most. Because egos are common in Hollywood, but legal liabilities get people blacklisted. This is where the fallout shifts from headlines to consequences. Because when a scandal reaches this level, Hollywood doesn't issue press releases. It goes silent. And silence in this town is not neutrality. It's distancing. Over the last several weeks, insiders say studios, brands, and PR firms have quietly started pulling back. Not publicly, but strategically. Meetings once labeled priority are now tentative. Discussions that were moving forward are now under reassessment. Projects Blake was rumored to be attached to? Suddenly on pause. Not canceled, paused. Which is the industry's polite way of saying, we're waiting to see if she becomes radioactive. Because no studio wants to spend $50 million on a lead actress who may face sanctions, credibility questions, or evidence tampering headlines halfway through production. And here's the bigger problem for Blake and Ryan. Brands don't care about nuance. They care about optics plus legal exposure. A harassment story can be spun. An extortion narrative cannot. A PR dispute can be recycled. Wiretap allegations terrify legal departments. Add in the accusation that Ryan weaponized his influence without proof, and suddenly both halves of the golden couple become a shared risk package. You don't just hire Blake, you hire Blake and the headlines that follow Ryan with her. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni is experiencing the opposite trajectory. While Blake and Ryan are losing narrative control, he's gaining credibility by doing nothing but letting the record speak. Quiet vindication is the most powerful kind, is because people start realizing if he were lying, the evidence would have shown it already. Studios aren't stupid. They know how PR manipulation works. And now they're asking a harder question. If Blake had real proof, why rely on a potentially illegal recording? Why leak allegations instead of evidence? Why 10 months of subpoenas? With nothing concrete to show for it? The conclusion people are arriving at is the one Blake never wanted. She didn't have evidence, she tried to manufacture leverage. And in Hollywood, manufactured leverage is the one sin that doesn't get forgiven. If you're following this saga and want the next set of leaks, filings, and testimony breakdowns as they drop, make sure to subscribe, tap the bell, and stay locked in. Because the most damaging evidence hasn't even hit the public docket yet. Let me know in the comments. Do you think Blake Lively's career survives this? Or is this the moment Hollywood finally realizes the golden couple wasn't gold, just polished? Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.